So maybe it is possible. I have no evidence of this. These are all secret things, but it's possible that these could be American warheads stored in Pakistan.
Abrogation of 370. What's happened after that? Tell us the truth.
We hit air bases where they have nuclear warheads being stored there. So their nuclear blackmail has been demolished once and for all.
Why is it that all diplomatic attempts to maintain relationships with them from our side always seem to fail?
And today we can reliably, confidently say that India has the world's finest battle-tested air defense system, better than Israel's Iron Dome. Pakistan is not going to change. The only way we can make the problem of terrorism go away is if the Pakistani military ISI terrorism establishment, the singular unified entity, if that is dismantled, then terrorism may perhaps end. Even if the Pakistanis launch nuclear missiles at us, most likely the missiles will never see the atmosphere. They'll be shot down outside the atmosphere.
I'm actually feeling so safe already.
India was the only nation that developed the nuclear program entirely on its own, apart from the Americans.
My question here is that what do you think of Operation Sindoor? Firstly, the name.
So it's a very symbolic name that we are avenging the wiping out of the Sindoor of our daughters, of our ladies. When there's a terrorist massacre in Kashmir, they'll keep quiet. When there is a terrorist massacre some other place in India, they'll keep quiet. But when something happens in Gaza, they'll say all eyes on Gaza or all eyes on Rafah. My question is, why do we need their artists to come here?
The world has sort of encouraged, or if not encouraged, then gotten used to this Pakistan-sponsored terrorism.
Oh, absolutely. It's the old normal. India gets about 20% of the waters that flow in the region, and about 80% of the water is to be given to Pakistan. It is the most unequal, the most lopsided treaty in the history of humanity. And the Americans essentially funded and financed Pakistani terrorism against India for decades during the first Cold War in the 20th century. Yeah. We have never seen our missiles striking and from the ground, that sort of coverage. And it looks awesome.
So, one world leader secretly enabling Pakistan.
If you want a secret enabler, I would say that.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Are you serious, sir?
I'm not joking.
What's that odd advice that you would give to them as an Indian citizen?
The advice I would give to them would be to shut up. Your time is up.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of the OddCast Show. The OddCast Show is a platform between a father and son where we talk about anything that's odd but relevant. No topic is a taboo, and today's topic is very, very interesting. We keep trying and getting different perspectives for two different generations between our father and son duo. And today we have the Abhijit Chavda sir with us again. We've done 3 podcasts with him in the past, and they've all been really, really successful for us. They've been very enlightening for us. We've learned a lot, and Sir has this knack of dropping bombshells, and I'm sure that in this episode you will see many, many bombs being dropped by him. And these are truth bombs and a lot of logical thought that goes into, whatever he says. So it's just very fascinating to have him on our show. And today we are discussing the really, really odd topic of Pakistan and where we stand today with them and what's the future and how do we deal with them permanently.
Abhijit sir, namaste. Welcome back to the OddCast Show. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Namaste. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you for coming, sir. I just wanted to talk a lot about Pakistan and India today.
Mm-hmm.
And to start off, we would just like to set off the historical context just so that people can understand better. So to start off, sir, please tell us why exactly did this partition lead to so much hostility in Southern Asia?
So Pakistan was created as a geopolitical gambit by a foreign power. We used to have one united subcontinent. We used to have kingdoms and empires in the subcontinent, but those were natural, those were organic.
Right.
Now the British occupied India for 2.5 centuries, more or less, and they sucked everything of value out of India, completely impoverished and destroyed India. And while leaving India, when there was nothing left to exploit and extract out of India, they decided to partition the country along religious lines so that they could create an artificial temporary nation on India's western border that would continue to serve their geopolitical interests in the Indian subcontinent region and the larger West Asia, etc. region. So that's why they created this artificial. The logic behind creating it was that Hindus and Muslims can't stay together. They can't live together. They are separate nations. It's the so-called two-nation theory. And this took credence among a lot of people in India. The British very subtly engineered this thing, and that's how the partition happened. And the partition was obviously created on religious lines because of the two-nation theory. Lots of people believed that we can't live together, and that caused a lot of hatred among the two communities, the Hindus and the Muslims. And a lot and millions of people were massacred, especially those who were fleeing from what is now Pakistan towards India. So it was a very disastrous, bloody affair. And that set the tone for what would follow for the next 80 or so years. And Pakistan has consistently, their entire raison d'etre, the reason to be, is that we are not Indians. So their entire, identity is based on denying their heritage and their ancestry and claiming some fictitious made up ancestry and heritage. And yeah, so that is what Pakistan is. So they have consistently been a terrorist nation, and that's why we are in the situation that we are in today. We recently had a 3 day war,
Right.
and that has still solved nothing. So that's where we are.
So, sir, you mentioned the 3 day war that we, took part in recently, and you also mentioned that there was a big bloodbath when the partition actually happened in 47. But post that, till today, there's always been some or the other terrorist attack from Pakistan or so-called friendly neighbors. And what's happening now? Like what is this? Is this going to change or is this going to continue?
Leopard doesn't change its spots. A scorpion will always sting the frog. So Pakistan is not going to change. The only way we can make this the problem of terrorism go away is if the Pakistani military ISI terrorism establishment, the singular unified entity, if that is dismantled, then terrorism may perhaps end. So Pakistan is not going to change. Pakistan is not going to learn the lessons that we have been imparting over and over again. We have been to war with them, with Pakistan for about I think 5 times now, right? We had 48, we had 65, we had 71, we had 99 Kargil, and
Yes,
we had the 3 day war which
correct.
just happened. They've always been hammered, but they have never learned the lesson. So they have used terrorism as an instrument of state policy. This is something they learned in the 1970s and 80s. Before that, they used to do it in other ways. So when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan on Christmas Day 1979, that's when the Americans suddenly developed a tremendous amount of interest in Pakistan, because Pakistan could be the staging base for a counter Soviet operation in Afghanistan. So the CIA came in. They funneled a lot of money and arms and ammunition and whatnot into Pakistan. They taught the Pakistanis how to train mujahideen and how to use tactics that would later be called terrorism. And this was initially employed against the Soviets in Afghanistan. But once the capacity became sufficient, they started funneling it into Punjab initially and then into Kashmir. So the Pakistanis learned how to use these asymmetric means of warfare from the Americans, from the CIA, and the Americans essentially funded and financed Pakistani terrorism against India for decades, because at that time India was in the USSR camp during the first Cold War in the
Right.
20th century. So the Pakistanis have been doing it for a very long time, and they are going to keep on doing it as long as they exist. There is no solution but to end Pakistan the way it exists.
But what do you think about Operation Sindoor? You see, we've had this long past with them, like you mentioned. There have been bloodbaths across, and they've always got hammered, is what you mentioned. And they're not going to learn a lesson. They're like leopards, who are not going to change their spot. So, my question here is that what do you think of Operation Sindoor? Firstly, the name.
Well, it's a very symbolic name because there was a terrorist attack on Indian civilians, tourists, and one Nepalese person also, which happened in Pahalgam in April, in which the men were shot, and they were shot in front of their wives and children. So the ladies, their sindoors were wiped out by the terrorists.
Right.
Right. So it's a very symbolic name that we are avenging the wiping out of the sindoor of our daughters, of our ladies. And so it was a very symbolic name. The operation was a stunning success. I mean, we have never until today seen almost live coverage of what Indian missiles sound like and look like when they hit targets. We have never seen that before.
Yeah.
The
We've seen
world has never
Iraq, Iran wars. We've seen, the Gulf War, etc. But we've not seen that in India.
we have never seen our missiles striking and from the ground, that sort of coverage, and it looks awesome. Okay, the sound, the way it comes in, you can hear it coming, but you can't do a thing to stop it, and then it hits, and the hit is so tremendous. So we saw it over and over again. We saw Indian ballistic missiles, Indian cruise missiles, the BrahMos most likely, various Indian drones, the Harop drone, which is made in India in large quantities, one believes, and so on. So we were able to hit Pakistan over and over again in the heart of their military establishment, in Noor Khan Air Base, in Sargodha Air Base, in Karachi, not Karachi, Karachi also, In Rawalpindi, Islamabad, wherever we wanted, we were able to hit them at will, at the heart of their military establishment. And so that's one thing we saw. We saw our drones going into Pakistan. The first day of the strikes, when we first hit the terrorist infrastructure, we sent loitering drones, slow moving drones deep into Pakistani territory, hundreds of kilometers inside. And the drones just loitered there and very calmly filmed the strikes. And the Pakistani uh, air defense system did not detect our
They
drones.
failed.
They failed miserably. This is before we started taking out the radars. So even while the radars were fully operational, we sent drones inside Pakistan territory, deep inside, and they failed to detect the drones. And our drones filmed the hits, hit after hit after hit on various terrorist infrastructure bases, camps, all that. Then our air defense came to the force. Once the Pakistanis decided that, we're going to respond. So they sent in hundreds of Turkish-made drones and missiles and whatnot. Every single thing was taken down by our air defense. We have a multi-layered air defense system, which has the L-70 gun, which is a Bofors gun from the 1940s, but we have retrofitted it with 21st century seeking technology and all that. We have that. We have the Pichora system, which is a legacy system. We have possibly the Barak system, which is a very advanced system. We have the Akash surface-to-air missile system, and we have the S-400 system, and we may have other systems also. So we have this multi-layered integrated air defense system, and today we can reliably, confidently say that India has the world's finest battle-tested air defense system, better than Israel's Iron Dome.
Really?
Absolutely. It
That's
took
insane.
down everything the Pakistanis fired at us. They even launched a ballistic missile or something like that at Delhi, which was brought down over Sirsa in Haryana. So we brought down everything. The Pakistanis are claiming they hit so-and-so Indian airbase and all. Show us the images. The satellite imagery is available to whoever wants to pay for it. Show us the proof. They have hit absolutely nothing whatsoever. And we have hit them wherever we wanted. We have video evidence of that and satellite evidence of that. We also hit Kirana Hills, a nuclear storage site, nuclear warhead storage site. We hit Nur Khan and other I forget the names of these air bases, foreign language, so I don't know. But we hit air bases where they have nuclear warheads being stored there. So their nuclear blackmail has been demolished once and for all.
We've called their bluff.
We've called their bluff and we've called it like anything. You've got nukes, come on, let's use them. Show us your nukes. They could not. So at the end of the day, the Americans had to step in because Pakistan is very valuable to the US apparently. And that's one thing that the Americans and Chinese see eye to eye on, which is Pakistan. So I think Operation Sindoor most likely was terminated prematurely or paused prematurely. We probably have not been able to accomplish all the objectives we may have had in mind when we started the operation. But overall, it was a resounding success. The Pakistanis have been beaten black and blue. And funnily enough, they are still claiming some kind of success. Which
They're
is
also
really funny.
promoting their generals to field marshals and all that. So what's going on there? Like, what's the psyche there?
So the thing is, they are selling their public the fiction that Pakistan somehow won this war. When you're claiming that you won the war, you have to reward the guys who won, right? So the general has to be rewarded now. So Asim Munir is, I don't know, field marshal or something, whatever he is. I mean, it must be embarrassing to him deep inside, I suppose. But it doesn't matter. They're
I wonder.
Shameless people.
But sir, you mentioned nuclear warheads and we hit their nuclear facility, etc. So are these nuclear weapons theirs or are they being stored for some other country there? What's the deal there?
That's a very good question. And that's a question very few people are asking. These so-called nuclear weapons the Pakistanis have, did they develop these weapons themselves? So we have been sold this story that in the 1980s there was this rogue scientist called Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan
Yes,
who
yes.
stole a nuclear centrifuge or weapons blueprints from the Netherlands or something. And he brought them to Pakistan, and then he got some aid from the Chinese and some North Korean technology. And using all these different components together, he was able to build nuclear weapons for Pakistan. Okay, so that's the story we've been told. And after our tests in 1998, I think in the May or something of 1998, when we tested 5 nuclear weapons, a few days later, the Pakistanis tested 5 nuclear weapons, 5 or 6 or whatever it was, almost on demand. So it looks like they already had the technology by the time. The real question is, did these nukes, which they tested and which they have today, are these really Pakistani weapons? Or are they weapons given to them by another country just to, as a hedge against India or to keep India off balance? That's a possibility. This could be Chinese weapons or this could be American weapons also.
Absolutely.
Who knows? Because see, when the Americans panicked when India started hitting the nuclear sites, it shows that there was something of value to the Americans there. As long as we were hitting their air bases and so on, we hit like 11 air bases in 20 minutes of Pakistan. But once we started hitting the nuclear storage sites, that's when the Americans stepped in. So maybe there is something of value to them there. If these are Pakistani nuclear warheads, then how do the Americans care if we are destroying them?
Yeah.
If these are Chinese warheads, why do they care? But so the Americans panicked and stepped in. And that raises certain questions. So maybe it is possible. I have no evidence of this. These are all secret things. But it's possible that these could be American warheads stored in Pakistan. Just like the Americans have F-16s that the Pakistanis use.
Right.
Maybe they've given a few warheads to Pakistan for safekeeping, for storage, for whatever long-term reasons they may have. So yeah, it's a great question, and it's something people should really ask. That
Right.
Are these really Pakistani warheads? Do they really have the capability to develop this technology on their own? Because see, there's been only a few nations that have been able to develop
Yes.
nuclear weapons technology. The US did it on its own through Manhattan Project. Then there were spies, Soviet spies over there apparently, who took some of the technology to the USSR. The USSR may have helped China. Okay, the Israelis were helped by other spies and all that. The French and the British also benefited to some extent from the Manhattan Project through diffusion, let's say. India was the only nation that developed the nuclear program entirely on its own, apart from the Americans. Now, do the Pakistanis have the wherewithal to develop nuclear weapons on their own, even with some stolen blueprints or whatever? I think it's very unlikely. It's not that easy to develop a nuclear weapons program, that to miniaturized warheads and all that. So it's possible that these could be Chinese or American warheads.
So, sir, I would like to take you back to the geopolitical relations between India and Pakistan. Why is it that all diplomatic attempts to maintain relationships with them from our side always seem to fail?
Let's say you have two neighbors. Okay, one neighbor wants good relations. Leave us in peace. Just leave us alone. Don't bother us, and we will never bother you. The other neighbor is an absolute barbarian. Is a terrorist who understands only one language, who only understands the language of violence and force and power. When you have that situation, diplomacy will always fail because the other guy doesn't understand the language of diplomacy, right? And when you have one neighbor, India, who wants to be left alone, leave me in alone, leave me in peace. I just want to do my thing, okay? But the other neighbor, its entire reason for being is to destroy the other country, which Pakistan has sworn for a long time that they
Right.
will destroy India.
Right.
And see, the Pakistani military says that its entire legitimacy is that we are safeguarding the great nation of Pakistan from the evil Indians, and India seeks to destroy us. That's what they claim. That's what they teach their people. So
Okay.
their awam, their population is brought up believing from childhood that India is the great enemy, and the only thing that stands between Pakistan and complete destruction at the hands of India is the Pakistani military ISI terrorist establishment. And that's why we should allow them to be the dictators. We know that they are the real rulers. We know that the Wazir Azam is just a puppet. But as long as the RB exists, they are keeping us safe from India, from the evil Hindus, right?
Right.
So that's the deal. So that's what gives legitimacy to Pakistan, to the Pakistani army. Now, when they have created this entire facade, this entire fictitious story, then they have to keep some kind of military activity, some kind of fight going on with India.
Absolutely.
And they use terrorism as a means of doing that to keep the tensions there at the border. And historically, we have never responded to terrorism. All we would do is some cross-border firing, right? Every morning you wake up and the Pakistanis are shooting at you, so you shoot back, that sort of thing, at the border, at the LOC. But we have never hit the terrorist camps and infrastructure deep inside Pakistan before. So because you have the situation, diplomacy is always going to fail. Because Pakistan has one set of objectives, we have a different set of objectives.
Right.
We just want peace, we want to be left alone by Pakistan. And Pakistan doesn't want to leave us alone. They want to destroy us.
Right.
So it doesn't
right,
work.
Right. Okay. So my next question is about something that has come as a surprise to a lot of people. And if I'm not wrong, it is also considered an act of war by the UN, and that is related to Indus Water Treaty. They say that if you sort of stop the water for one nation, then it's considered an act of war.
Okay.
If I'm not wrong. So before we get into that, I just would love for you to explain what exactly does the Indus Water Treaty say briefly.
It was signed between India and Pakistan sometime in the 1960s, maybe 1963 or thereabouts, plus or minus 1 or 2 years. Don't quote me on the date.
Okay.
But around that time, we signed it with Pakistan, and this treaty was underwritten or let's say supervised by, I think, the World Bank.
Okay.
Okay, which is a US
Yes.
owned institution.
Yes.
So according to this treaty, So we are talking about the rivers of Punjab. There are 6 rivers there. It's called Punjab, five rivers, but it's actually 6 rivers. It
Okay.
used to be called the Sapta Sindhu. We had seven once.
Yes,
The
yes.
one is gone, Saraswati. So there are 6 rivers there, and it's about who gets to control the river, the waters of these rivers. That's what the Indus Waters Treaty is about. So it is the great river Sindhu, Indus, and its various tributaries, the Ravi, Satluj, Beas, and so on and so forth. So, according to this treaty, India gets about 20% of the waters that flow in the region, and about 80% of the water is to be given to Pakistan. It is the most unequal, the most lopsided treaty in the history of humanity.
Right.
Even a nation that is defeated is not given such terms.
Right.
So we were not defeated by Pakistan ever, but we accepted such terms. I don't know for what reason, to appease the world, to show our greatness. I don't know what. Mr. Nehru was the prime minister at the time. So we agreed to this treaty. And this treaty has withstood many wars, the 65 war, 71 war, 98 war. And now it's broken. Now we have said enough is enough. We will not abide by this treaty anymore. The treaty is currently under abeyance, right? So, according to the treaty, Pakistan gets 80% of the waters, and we can't touch the water at all unless we use it for hydroelectricity generation or something like that, but nothing beyond that. Now, the question, so it is the most unequal treaty in history of humanity. Now, the question is if we stop abiding by the treaty, is this an act of war? Some people are claiming it's an act of war. Is it the first time in human history that somebody has walked away from a treaty? The Americans walked away from the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran,
Okay.
under President Trump.
Okay.
They unilaterally walked away from a treaty they had signed, the Iran nuclear deal. Trump walked away from this. Did anybody raise any eyebrow? The Chinese had this treaty with the UK about Hong Kong, about the status of Hong Kong. That Hong Kong will have a separate status, a special status for China, one nation but two systems. So Hong Kong will have a separate system.
Right.
The Chinese unilaterally walked away from that. They said that this no longer applies. We will no longer accept this. Did the world say a thing? There have been so many examples of nations walking away from treaties when those treaties go counter to their national interests.
Yes.
We are under no obligation to keep on abiding by a treaty that hurts us.
Right.
Okay, there's no gun at our head.
Yes.
So we are fully within our rights to walk away from a treaty. If somebody claims it's an act of war, they can go take a hike. Okay, absolutely, they can go take a hike. So we have walked away from the treaty, and it's still technically not been broken. We have certain dams, etc., that we are using, the run of the river dams and all. But it'll take time for us to actually, operationalize the infrastructure that we need to actually fully start leveraging and utilizing the waters that flow through our beautiful lands of Punjab, Haryana, the northern parts of India. So we have walked away from the treaty, and I say, well done. It was high time we did that.
So walking away now is technically a formal procedure on paper, right? Because they sort of cancel the treaty and then they do what next?
You do nothing on paper. To hell with papers. That's what we've said. We had this paperwork, blah, blah, blah. We had the inspectors, UN inspectors coming and seeing this or whatever. Pakistani observers on our side to see that we are abiding by the treaty or not. All of that has been dismantled. We will do no more paperwork. We'll do whatever the hell we want on our side of the border. That's what it is. There's no paperwork involved in dismantling a treaty. We will do whatever we want going forward. We do not abide by agreements when you have a terrorist neighbor who's unleashing terrorism on us.
Right.
If they want us to abide by the treaty, they have to first dismantle terrorism and demonstrably prove that they have permanently ended the terrorist infrastructure. They have to demonstrably prove it, and the onus of the proof is on them, not on us. So that's our condition on them. Destroy and dismantle your terrorist infrastructure. Show us unmistakable proof that you have done it. Eliminate all your terrorists, which means kill them if required. I don't care. You have millions of them. That's your problem. So that needs to happen.
But sir, you mentioned earlier that the army there or the establishment or the government there in Pakistan is basically brainwashing their people, their awam, that India is a evil neighbor of ours and we need to destroy them, right? I understand the brainwashing happening over there, but when anything happens like this, when any incident like right from 2611 se leke abhi Balakot, Pulwama, Pahalgam now, and then Operation Sindoor, there's a lot of people on this side of the border also who support them in the sense that they will say ki, the Aman Ki Asha gang, they will say that no, we should maintain peace talks, we should continue dialogue with them, we should, get their artists over here, we should allow their cricketers to come. What's your thought on that? Why are they doing it?
Yeah, that's a problem we face. I think every nation has what is called a fifth column. Our fifth column is significantly larger than what you have in certain other nations. So you have a significant, very visible, very vocal minority in India who keep on saying that we need to de-escalate with Pakistan. If something is happening, it is the onus is on us to pull back and not hurt them too much if there's a war going on, and we should engage in cultural diplomacy with them. We should invite their artists to our country. My question is, why do we need their artists to come here? We have 1.4 billion people. Don't we have enough artists over here? Don't we have superior culture and art in India? What is Pakistani culture? There's no culture called Pakistani culture. It's our culture. We have it in India. Why do we need their artists to come here and earn money from here and once again go back to Pakistan and use that money for terrorism? Because even if an artist is not a terrorist, they're going to pay taxes in Pakistan. The taxes go into the ISI military terrorist establishment, and it funds terrorism. So why should we do that? Now the question is, why do some Indians, like you're saying, espouse such causes? Why do they keep on favoring Pakistan? the the ancient Indian elite, the post 97 elite, post 1947 elite of India, were all anglicized elite. See, if you were a rich person in 1947, it could only be because you had collaborated and cooperated with the British. The rich people in India who were rich before the British came, if they did not cooperate with the British, their wealth was stolen.
They'll be wiped
Plundered,
out.
wiped out. The real royalty of India was wiped out in 1857. The ones who fought against the British.
Right.
Only those who collaborated and cooperated are still called royalty today, the princely states. So we have to understand these things. Now, after 1947, what happened was that there was a transfer of power from the British to a set of Indians. It was not a democratic transfer of power.
Right.
And the people who had benefited from British rule, they remained to a large extent the elite of India. They formed the various institutions. They were the core of all the institutions. For example, the media. Okay, all the media, the old media was all Anglophilic media, people who had benefited from British rule and who yearned for something like British rule again. And a lot of the media today also is a continuation of that. Of course, today with the age of social media, you have lots of new media houses that have come up
Right.
who show the real picture. But even today, there's a lot of older folks who still are part of the old establishment, which was very pro-Britain and by extension pro-Pakistan, because Pakistan is a British creation. So there's a lot of people in India, and also the fact that you have a communist Marxist stranglehold on the Indian education system means that we are taught false history, fake history. And if you go into higher education, college level, university level, you have lots of professors who are actually very strongly anti-India and pro-China, pro-Pakistan, and who will brainwash students into believing that Pakistan is actually on the right side. And I have personally met people who have gone through, the humanities departments, who actually support the Chinese claims on Tibet and Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin, and who support the Pakistani claims on Kashmir, and who don't support India's claim on anything. So kids get brainwashed in this manner, and that's how you end up with all these people who support the Pakistani side of things. So that is something that needs to be addressed by reforming the education system, by reforming the media, reforming a lot of stuff, by decolonizing India. And not a lot of work has happened on that front, but that's where we are. So that's why we have the situation where so many Indians from within India will support Pakistan and ask India to de-escalate. When there's something happening in Kashmir, when there's a terrorist massacre in Kashmir, they'll keep quiet. When there is a terrorist massacre some other place in India, they'll keep quiet. But when something happens in Gaza, they'll say all eyes on Gaza or all eyes on Rafah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of hypocrisy you have Indians demonstrating. And that needs to be addressed in some way.
But so is Operation Sindoor actually over or is it ongoing? What's happening?
Well, the official stand is that it is currently still on. It has officially been paused. It is not a ceasefire. Mr. Donald J. Trump claimed it was a ceasefire. We have never used the word ceasefire. It is currently paused, and we are going to monitor the Pakistani activities. And they have to show us credible evidence that they are dismantling terrorist infrastructure. And if it doesn't happen, and if there is any other future terrorist attack against India, it will be taken as an act of war, and Operation Sindoor will resume. So currently, it is on a pause.
It's on a pause.
Yes.
All right, all right. And so you mentioned about, Pakistan, the way they're acting since the last 70, 75, 80 years is more of an ideological imbalance over there where they are being taught to hate us. But is there anything else also going on out there? Like, is there any foreign interference out there? And who gains most over there?
Yes. What value does Pakistan bring to the world, and to which part of the world? So Pakistan was created as an artificial temporary nation to serve British interests. Because once India becomes independent, India would go its own way, and they needed something in the region that would serve their interests. So Pakistan was that entity. And Pakistan has always been a mercenary nation. It's always been a nation that has had a lack of democracy. It's always essentially been ruled by the military, by the armed forces. And they have always served as servants or mercenaries of foreign powers. Initially, it was the UK. But after 1956, the UK became a third rate world power after the Suez crisis was over. So then the Americans eventually stepped in. And India, for whatever reason, had chosen to be on the side of the USSR, of the Soviet bloc. So we were on the opposite end of the table from the West's perspective. So they naturally saw Pakistan as a great fit for balancing things out in the Indian subcontinent and greater area. So Pakistan became a US vassal, a US puppet state eventually, 1970s onwards. And Pakistan has a great amount of value from that perspective as a nation that can counterbalance India. Because see, India is currently at a $4 trillion mark, economy-wise, 4.5 trillion. India is now the fourth largest economy in the world. And India has so many internal issues, structural issues, despite which we have risen to this fourth position in the global economy. If we fix those issues, which will happen, India will start rising even faster.
Right.
And eventually, by a 2040 horizon, India may be the third largest economy, a $10-15 trillion economy. And then the West will start seeing India not as a friendly nation, but as a competitor, as a rival. And they don't want this to happen. And to keep India off balance and to prevent India from growing that fast, they would like to have various tools at their disposal that give them leverage. So you have West Pakistan. You also have East Pakistan, Bangladesh, where there was a coup recently. So it's again East Pakistan now.
There's another coup happening right now.
Well, one hears rumors about that. Yes, that's right. So Pakistan, West Pakistan, has always been that valuable nation that can project power, American power, into Afghanistan, into Central Asia, but also against India. So keep India off balance, keep India bleeding on the western side through terrorism. And even today, Pakistan seems to have great value from that perspective. The West doesn't see India as a friend. We speak English, we are very westernized in this country, especially the educated youth and all. But the West doesn't see India, they don't see us as one of them. They see us as a future rival. They are deeply upset that we still exist. After 250 years of British occupation, we have still not been destroyed. We still have our culture. How
And
dare
we're thriving now.
we are thriving now, and we have not given up our culture. We have not converted to whatever religion they want us to. So it's a problem for them. If we had gone the way of South Korea, completely Christianized, then they would be fine with us. If we had gone some other, like Japan, under their occupation, then they'll be fine. But we are completely sovereign. We have our own culture and civilization, and we refuse to die, and we are actually growing again. How dare we? So they need something to counterbalance us. And Pakistan is a great tool in their arsenal for that. That's why it's valuable.
But then, sir, all the logic that you've told is, it can be applied to China as well, right? The same thing that, even they are threatened by our growth. So it would be like not just the West, it would be China also.
Indeed, indeed. So Pakistan is the one issue on which the US and China see eye to eye. The US and China disagree on everything. The US sees China as the great existential threat now because China is technologically catching up with the US today.
Even economically.
Economically, a very big economy, and technologically, they're almost on par with the US. Economically, they're still behind. The US is about $30 trillion, and China is about $19 trillion. So still a gap there, but technologically, the Chinese have caught up to a large extent with the US. So the Americans are very threatened by China, and that's why we have this trade and tariff war that's going on. But on the issue of Pakistan, the Americans and Chinese see absolutely eye to eye. Both nations see India as a big threat. Both nations don't want to see India rise beyond $5 trillion. If India becomes a $10 trillion economy, huge problem for them. So Pakistan is a great bet for both the US and China, for keeping India off balance, for counterbalancing India, for keeping India uncomfortable all the time. So yes, China and the US both see the same value in Pakistan. And that's why Pakistan still exists. And that's why we have this so-called ceasefire.
So, sir, coming to a global perspective, do you think the world has sort of encouraged, or if not encouraged, then gotten used to this Pakistan-sponsored terrorism?
Oh, absolutely. It's the old normal. And India has always kept quiet about this. I mean, India has complained in the past. I remember when I was a kid, in the early 1990s, when the whole Kashmir terrorism thing was at its peak. India used to go to the UN, India used to go and complain that the Pakistanis are terrorists. They are targeting civilians, they are doing terrorism. And the Americans used to tell us, this is a law and order issue. You're not able to handle law and order in your own state, and you're coming to the global stage and complaining about it. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves? So they used to dismiss this as a law and order issue.
Right.
While it was at the same time, they were funding and financing the Pakistani terrorism against India. So this has been the old normal. Pakistan keeps on unleashing terror attacks against India. India just keeps complaining silently. Mild complaints. India doesn't do a thing against Pakistan. As long as the Pakistanis don't come and grab our territory, like what happened in Kargil, we'll do nothing militarily. We'll just keep on absorbing the pain over and over again. So the world is used to it. The world is used to Pakistan being used as a tool to destabilize India by the West. So that's the old normal. Now, if we do something like Operation Sindoor, that is considered to be what? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why can't you behave like the way you always behaved? That's why a lot of the Western media, essentially, etc., are upset with India. That India went and did what we did. I mean, the kind of damage we did to Pakistan was unimaginable, and this is going to be the new normal going forward. So yeah, the West is used to ignoring Pakistan terrorism. Everybody knows what Pakistan does, but as long as you go and put on a performative display on the world stage, so a Pakistani prime minister, foreign minister will go on the world stage, go to the West media and say, we are the biggest victims of terrorism. We are at the forefront of the global fight against terror. As long as you go and do this performative acting and repeat these old platitudes, the world was happy with that, and they would happily turn a blind eye to what Pakistan was actually doing.
Right. Right.
But now we're going to force the world to not ignore the problem anymore. That's the new normal now, hopefully.
So is America, United States of America, now our ally or not?
The US is not our ally. The US has never been India's ally. Okay? They may sometimes use language in which they use the term ally, but we are not their ally. See, what is an alliance? It's a formal agreement, it's a formal pact, it's a treaty. All alliances are based on treaties. The Americans and Pakistanis signed a treaty in the 1960s, which made Pakistan a major non-NATO ally of the US.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, the Pakistanis and Americans have a very old history of cooperation. You may have heard that in the 1960s, there was this American pilot called Gary Powers, who was flying a U-2 spy plane, who was shot down over the USSR.
Okay.
Okay? Do you know where this spy plane took off from?
No,
It
sir.
took off from Peshawar. The Americans were operating their spy plane program out of Peshawar and various Pakistani air bases.
Wow.
The Americans have been using Pakistan for these geopolitical purposes for a very long time. They have a very old history of cooperation. And Pakistan is a major non-NATO American ally. India and the US, we never have signed any treaty of any kind of alliance. So we have issue-based cooperation. Each issue, we're going to look into it, and if it makes sense, we're going to cooperate together. And it's a call that the Indian government takes. The Americans want us to cooperate on everything, but we have to look out for our national interests. So the US is not our ally. And the way they often behave as if they are our enemy, don't they?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, if you have been funding Pakistani terrorism for decades, that is definitely not an ally does to someone. So you have to look at the world realistically. They are not our ally.
So
We have no allies.
what can we do to counter this, sir?
The problem of terrorism,
No, no. Generally, I'm saying that a lot of countries, even most of our neighbors, sort of being against us. What can we do to counter that?
well, it's a funny old situation, right? We are the most powerful nation in the Indian subcontinent region, and yet most of our neighbors are arrayed against us.
Right. Right.
It's because there are only two nations that are more powerful than India. Three: the US, China, and Russia. Russia is not our enemy by any means whatsoever. It's the closest thing we have to an ally.
Okay.
But the next two, the top two, the US and China, are, you could say, they don't want us to rise. They don't want us to grow. And that's why they use our neighbors against us. So when you have a situation where you are the biggest guy in the neighborhood, but there are two much bigger guys who are supporting all your neighbors, then you have a situation where all your neighbors are against you. So even a friendly nation like Sri Lanka, the Chinese have sometimes, used them against us, or the Americans have used them against us. Right now, Nepal is a bone of contention. The Chinese want Nepal to be on their side and so on. And East and West Pakistan, the Americans are using that against us. Myanmar is under civil war, and there's this tremendous terrorism problem in Manipur. Foreign cookies are, squatting on Indian territory and claiming Indian land, and so on. All these issues are created by foreign powers. So what can India do to counter this is the big question. The only tool in our disposal is economic growth. We have to reach a size where nobody dares bully us anymore in our neighborhood, even if they are paid by outsiders. So we have to become a 10, 15 trillion, $20 trillion economy at the earliest, as early as possible. Without that massive size, economic size, with which comes military size, there's nothing we can do about it. So Long-term growth is the solution. A lot of hard work.
Okay.
So while you mentioned that economically long-term growth is the solution, and I fully agree with that, but my question here is that we thought at least Gen Z kind of people think that okay after Balakot and the surgical strikes that we did on Uri etc. and all that that Pakistan would stop, take a break, but then they came back with Pahalgam now, and this as we are discussing it doesn't seem that they're going to stop. They're going to keep at it. So what's the long-term solution with just dealing with Pakistan one-on-one? Like,
Yeah.
would nuclear warfare be a solution in the like? Will we ever use nukes?
Yeah, good question. So let's say tomorrow means long-term tomorrow, we are a $15 trillion economy. Does it mean everything is all is well for us? No. As long as Pakistan exists on our western border, no matter what $1 trillion economic mark you breach, you will always have a problem next to you. And they will always keep on creating trouble for you. And they have sworn to destroy us. And that's so as long as they exist, they will do it. So the solution is to dismantle Pakistan. Now, I have nothing against the people of Pakistan. They are the same blood as us, but they want us to be dead. Okay, they are brainwashed ideologically, religiously, etc., to hate us. So I would say 9 out of 10 Pakistanis want us all dead, even though they are our blood relatives. So what's the point of having blood relatives like that who want us dead? So I have nothing against the people of Pakistan, but I want the nation of Pakistan to be dismantled. What does that mean? It means that we have to put a full stop, a permanent end to the ISI military terrorist establishment, which is one single entity. It's not three different entities. It's one single entity. It has to be destroyed from its core. It has to be destroyed. And once that happens, Pakistan will break into multiple pieces. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa must go back to Afghanistan with their own people. Baltistan and POK must return to India. Sindhu Desh can become free. Punjabistan can remain Punjabistan if they want, and Balochistan can become free. Once this happens, then we can deal with all these nations individually. We can mentor them and grow, help them grow again into proper democracies, and eventually, maybe 100 years down the future, we can reintegrate them into India once they are de-radicalized. That is the only solution to Pakistan. Now, can we end the ISI terrorist military infrastructure through nuclear strikes? I would say we should never think about nuclear warfare because it is barbaric. Only barbarians do that. There's only one barbaric nation that has done that against civilians. Once you understand what happens in a nuclear strike, once you see the people with the skins fallen off and who are walking around,
Peeling off, yeah.
yeah, skins peeled off, and people whose hair
Melting,
is burning, and people's whose eyes have gone completely white. Once you see the horrors of nuclear warfare, you would never want to use that. So I don't think India should ever use nuclear weapons. We have them as a means of last resort if somebody crosses certain lines against us, but we don't want to actually use them unless we are forced to. So we will never use nuclear weapons against Pakistan unless they start the process. If they started, they're finished once and for all. But ideally, we want to denuclearize Pakistan and de-terrorize Pakistan, which means we have to end the ISI military thing without hopefully resorting to nuclear weapons. I'm sure there are contingency measures and all that we have war gamed, and once the time comes, we will implement them. Any war with any future war between India and Pakistan should not last more than 3 days. Pakistan should be annihilated. The establishment needs to be annihilated in 3 days. Once we decide to go the full Monty. Right now, Operation Sindoor was not about destroying Pakistan entirely. It was about sending a message not just to Pakistan but to the whole world that we will not tolerate terrorism anymore. But in the future, when there's a final war between India and Pakistan, then it has to be over in 3 days. We can't give them the opportunity to think about using nukes against us. So when that war happens, it should be over in 3 days, and we have the capability to end a war in 3 days. We have it. We've shown that to some extent this time.
But you did mention, sir, that while we won't use any nuclear warfare against them, would they do it? Do you think that they're
That's a great question. And I think Pakistan had the opportunity to use nukes against us in this 3-day war that happened. I mean, we hit them everywhere. We hit their core military bases, some of the crown jewels of their Air Force, the Air Force base at Sargodha, the Noor Khan Air Base, and so on. We hit 11 air bases in about 20 minutes. That's what we did. And it looks like we hit their nuclear storage sites and everything that they have. So if they will not use nuclear weapons in this situation, when will they use nuclear weapons? I think we have completely called their nuclear bluff, and they have been exposed that they don't have the courage to use nuclear weapons. And even if they try to use nuclear weapons, will they be able to land the nuclear weapons? It's a very big question, because we now have the world's best battle-tested air defense system. The Pakistanis launched strikes on more than 25 Indian cities, all the way from Leh in the north to Kutch in the south. And we were able to defend all the cities across this enormously long border with not a single hit happening anywhere.
It's like pinpoint precision.
Absolutely. So we have a tremendous air defense system. And they launched a ballistic missile at Delhi, which we brought down over Sirsa in Haryana. So we can even defend against ballistic missiles and long-range missiles. So I think even if Pakistan tries to launch nuclear missiles, we will bring them down. We even have some technology that we don't talk about, like the ASAT technology, which can take out ballistic missiles easily, which can easily take out ballistic missiles. In 2019, we did Operation Shakti, which was a kill vehicle that took out an Indian military satellite that we had said was disposable. So we wanted to see if we have the capability to take out a satellite in orbit, in low Earth orbit, 200, 300 kilometers above the surface. At that orbit, the object is traveling at about 10 kilometers roughly per second. Okay, and we took out that, which is faster than a bullet, and we took that out from using a rocket that we fired from the surface. So a ballistic missile has less speed than this, and we were able to take out an object with higher speed than a ballistic missile. So we can certainly take out ballistic missiles outside of Earth's atmosphere. So we have all the components of a very robust air defense system in place. Even if the Pakistanis launch nuclear missiles at us, most likely the missiles will never see the atmosphere. They'll be shot down outside the atmosphere. Yeah.
I'm actually feeling so safe already.
Well, I was actually very pleasantly and very happily shocked at the quality of India's air defense. I had no idea that we had built up this incredibly robust air defense, and the fact that we used drones to our advantage, which tells us that we have learned the lessons of the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war and the Ukraine war without actually being in the war ourselves. But we've learned the lessons, absorbed the lessons.
And we didn't even use the Navy. The Navy didn't
use
come
the
into play
Navy.
yet, because that would have been another story altogether.
Oh yes, we did not use the Navy. We did not use the infantry.
Yeah.
We did not use tanks, mechanized columns, nothing.
Yeah.
It was just an air war.
Yeah.
Just imagine what we can do with all those components when they come into action.
Insane.
Yes.
But sir, late General Bipin Rawat ji mentioned that India is in a 2.0 front war.
Mhm.
Pakistan, China, and of course, point 5 he mentioned about enemies within India.
Yes.
And Kashmir has always been a bone of contention for both the nations. While we say that, okay, Kashmir is, the land of Rishi Kashyap, and, they claim that it's their territory. Abrogation of 370. What's happened after that? Tell us the truth.
So the abrogation of 370 happened. First of all, we have to understand as Indians that our territory extended far beyond what it is today.
Absolutely.
When Genghis Khan was pursuing Jalaluddin the Coward, he crossed over into India when he crossed the border of Tajikistan. The border of India
actually
was the
there,
border
yeah.
of Tajikistan. Right. Anyhow, Article 370 was abrogated in 2019, I think. And since then, there's been a lot of investment flowing into Jammu and Kashmir. A lot of foreign nations, especially from the Gulf region, are investing in the region. Tourism had started booming, and everything was going so well. The people were becoming prosperous and so on. And that's why the Pakistanis decided to do the Pahalgam attack to hopefully, from their perspective, derail the growth story of Kashmir. And now what's going to happen is that, so many lakhs of tourists were going to Kashmir every year. Now we're going to see a sudden breaking on that, a full stop on that. Now people are scared to go to Kashmir.
Yeah.
So that's going to, cause serious problems to the economy of Kashmir, which is to a large extent based on tourism. But then there are other deeper issues that we have to also look at when it comes to Kashmir. Have the people of Kashmir been genuinely de-radicalized? Because you cannot have a terrorist attack like Pahalgam without local support, without ground level support. So in terrorism, you have two big things. One is the underground terrorists who remain hidden, and then there's the overground workers, who are the people among us who are supporting terrorism. So it's typically, your hotel staff. Hello, sir. Is your meal fine? Everything good? The hotel staff is there. Then you have the tour and travel infrastructure, the drivers of the buses and the drivers of the cars and the tour agents and the tour companies. They keep an eye on the movement of tourists. That they know that so-and-so date, so many tourists will be here in so-and-so place and so on. So typically it is, I'm not saying all of them are involved in this, but typically you will have elements among these industries that will be overground workers and who will be in contact with terrorists. And that's how terrorists get to know in advance what's going to happen on so-and-so day so that we can strike over there. I think that is still a problem in Kashmir. The other thing we have to ask ourselves is that after Article 370 was abrogated, revoked or whatever, how many Kashmiri Pandits have returned to Kashmir? I would say zero, right? Nobody has returned to Kashmir, which means that they don't feel safe there, which means the core issue still remains. So I think Kashmir is still a problem. There are still big issues with Kashmir.
What's the solution there, sir?
The solution is large-scale de-radicalization of the people of Kashmir who have been brainwashed. We allowed the Pakistanis to brainwash the people of Kashmir for decades. See, that's the problem in India. We don't look at the deeper solutions to problems. The deepest, the deeper solutions are to reform the education system, or to reform the media, to reform all these things, and we are not doing it. If you have the same rotten education system, then just economic growth will do nothing because the quality of your population will still be the same. It will come from the quality of the education system. So you don't teach students how to differentiate between right and wrong. If somebody tries to mislead me, how do I correct myself? These things we never teach in the education system. And that's why it's very easy to mislead people. So there's a huge problem in Kashmir. So there is no short-term solution to de-radicalizing certain elements of the Kashmiri population. That will only happen over several generations. So it's going to be a long battle for us going ahead. Now you mentioned what General Bipin Rao, the late General Bipin Rao, had said, that we have a 2.5 war situation. One is one is Pakistan, one is China, and then there's a 0.5 front within India. So let me talk about that briefly.
Sure.
One of the biggest components of that 0.5 front is the illegals in India. In 2014, I don't remember which government official said that, but it was said officially by the government of India in 2014 that we have about 5 crore Bangladeshi illegals in India. In 2014, 50 million Bangladeshis were there in India illegally. By now, I would imagine possibly that they have doubled in number. So today,
At least, yeah.
At least. So today you may have 100 million illegal Bangladeshis in India. We know where they are. We see them everywhere. Every city has a Bangladeshi population. They're out there openly. They have, signboards in Bengali. They are not. They don't try to hide who they are. Everyone knows they're there, but the government is doing nothing about them. So there is 100 million Bangladeshis at least. There are, I don't know how many tens of thousands of Pakistanis. I mean, when the visas of Pakistanis were revoked, tens of thousands of Pakistanis were exposed, who had been living in India for decades, who have been having children with Indians, who have served in the Indian police forces, who have voted in India. Are we a nation or are we a goddamn joke? So we have Pakistanis lakhs perhaps. I don't know how many Rohingyas we have. In the far east of India, we have the cookie issue. Cookies have just walked into India from Burma, lakhs of them, and established thousands of new villages. Are we a joke of a nation or what? So this is the 0.5 front that first needs to be addressed. We need to evict all illegals out of India. If you are in India illegally, you are committing a crime. The government of India has to do this on a mission mode, and within a year or two, we need to evict every single last illegal infiltrator who is squatting on Indian territory and sucking our resources now in our lifeblood. Then we can deal with the 0.5 front that General Bipin Rao talked about. But first, this is the low-hanging fruit. And the problem is that, corruption. Because these illegals, they serve as illegal vote banks and whatnot, and that's why they're so valuable to certain people. In
So
power.
many people. Yeah.
So that's an issue, but it needs to be dealt with. Otherwise, we are doomed as a nation.
It sounds like, we're becoming a Vishwa Dharamshala.
Vishwa Dharamshala, absolutely. Ajao. Everybody just come in and do whatever you want in our country. And we can't say a thing against them. We can't do a thing against them. We can't take any action against them. And the government refuses to take action. A terrible situation.
But it's been a wonderful chat so far, sir. You mentioned, that in 20 minutes we hit our armed forces hit 11 air bases. We're introducing a new section today, which is a rapid fire. So we're going to try and, hit 7 questions in 5 minutes.
Awesome.
All right. So Wade is going to start off with the first one.
All right.
Yes, sir. So the first question is, one deal with Pakistan India should have never signed.
The Indus Waters Treaty. Never.
Okay, as expected.
China or Pakistan, who's the bigger long-term threat?
Oh, absolutely. It's China. No question about it.
One world leader secretly enabling Pakistan.
Donald Trump. It's not so secret anymore, but yeah. If you want a secret enabler, I would say Netanyahu.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Are you serious, sir?
I'm not joking.
You've dropped like
Now
the
I'll have
bomb
to
of the
explain
century.
myself.
Yeah. This one you need to, yeah.
Okay, I need to explain myself. See, it is said, it is known that in the 1980s, the Israelis wanted to bomb Pakistani nuclear installations. It is known. And they had actually drawn up an action plan for bombing a Pakistan nuclear reactor. And the Israeli Air Force planes would first come to India and take off with the Indian Air Force from Indian air bases and then bomb Pakistani nuclear installations so that the Pakistanis would not get nuclear weapons. Right? Didn't happen. Last minute, the Israelis pulled out of this. Maybe the Americans said something to the Israelis. The Israelis pulled out of this. Now today, okay, that's historically the context that we should think about. Second, number two, today, Pakistan's primary benefactor and protector is the US today. The US has a number one ally in the world, which is Israel. The question is, if US is so friendly with Pakistan as well as Israel, what is the connection and relationship between Israel and Pakistan? We know they don't have diplomatic relations, but are they actually enemies? There's a question mark there.
You opened up a topic for another crazy podcast now.
I know, but the question about the Israel-Pakistan relationship is an important question, and I'm not sure either party has ever completely come clean about this. So I think there is some kind of understanding between Israel and Pakistan, and also considering the possibility that you may have American warheads, nuclear warheads on Pakistani territory instead of Pakistani warheads that they have made themselves. Then once again there is the question of conflict of interest, and Israel will not want Pakistan to be damaged too much. So yeah,
That's insane and crazy. Really odd.
yeah, really odd indeed. Indeed, yes.
Back to the rapid fire. So, what's a soft power tool that India has just not used properly?
Soft power tool, Indian culture. We have our culture, but we don't export it. We don't do a thing about it, and we've missed so many opportunities. Bollywood has become an exporter of foreign culture now. Bollywood no longer represents Indian culture. Our cultural might is incredible. So many nations would love to dance to Indian music and watch Indian movies, but we don't really push that. So that's something, and we have so many great animators in India who do so much animation and graphics works for all these wonderful Hollywood movies, but we ourselves don't produce any great animation movies or anything. So there is so much that we are leaving on the table that we are not doing, and culture can be our greatest soft power export, and it can really, without firing a bullet, convert so many hearts and minds and make them see what India really is. Because right now there's so much misconceptions about India. So that can be erased through our cultural exports.
Should India, for good, scrap the Indus Waters Treaty?
Yeah, for good. It has to happen. Absolutely. I agree.
True or false, sir? Peace with Pakistan is a pipe dream?
It's true. It's a pipe dream.
One move that could isolate Pakistan globally.
We need to use our market as a huge leverage factor. Let's say you have McDonald's who has a million outlets in India. We tell McDonald's, you are welcome to do business in India. But if you want to do business in India, you have to choose India or Pakistan. If you have outlets in Pakistan, you have to shut down all your outlets in India. Same for KFC, same for Pizza Hut, same for Levi's, same for everybody. You want to do business in India and have access to 1.4 billion Indians? Make a choice, Pakistan or India. You do that, Pakistan gets isolated like that. Why don't we do it? Tell the Australian Cricket Board, you want to play IPL, you want to play with India, you want India to come and tour? No more Pakistan games. No more Australians playing in the whatever Pakistani league you have. Same for all the other cricket boards. Isolate Pakistan completely. We can do it. Why don't we do it?
But so I just want to sum up this episode by asking you one final question, about the 2.5 front war that we are dealing with. While the government and our armed forces are dealing with the 1 front, which is Pakistan and China, and they have the capabilities as we've seen. About the 0.5 front, there are a lot of prominent citizens also involved in this, where they keep voicing that aman ki asha, keep peace, keep etc. What's that odd advice that you would give to them as an Indian citizen?
The advice I would give to them would be to shut up. Your time is up. You are no longer relevant. No one's going to listen to you anymore. I know there are so-called senior actors and God knows what who either keep quiet or kind of softly support Pakistan. My advice to them is please keep quiet. You are no longer relevant in this matter. Gen Z doesn't care about you. Most Indians don't care about you anymore. And the more you do this, the more you will expose yourself. So that's what I would say.
All right, sir. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, sir.
joining us.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you and Jai Hind.
Jai
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.